Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Shane. Today we'll be talking about the hydraulic pump that came off of this tractor right here. It goes right here in this general location. This tractor had been having some issues when I hooked up heavier implements that it didn't want to pick them up like it did in the past. The lift was getting weak. So I decided to take off the PTO housing so I can get into the pump and take a look and see if it needs to be resealed. So far from what I've seen in the pump itself, several of the O-rings, several of the seals in there were bad. I do want to show you something though, and I'll bring you closer in just a moment. I do want to show you something on this, and it's probably the reason I had a weak lift. So we'll see more about that hydraulic pump in just a few moments. All right, you guys need to come over here with me so I can show you something. Well, let me grab a pick first. All right. Let's take a look at something real quick here. This is the in feed to the hydraulic pump from the reservoir down that way in the tractor. It goes through up into the pump, gets pressurized, and it goes out right here in this hole up that way up into the valve chest, I think. I'm not an expert on that, but I want you to look at something real quick here. See if I can get the camera situated just right. Just take a look at this, what I found. I have it. This is exactly basically the way I left it and the way I took it off. Can you see this O-ring? Do you see it's broken? Just knocked the rest of it off. That's how it was on the pump. This pump is supposed to be pressurized 2,000 psi. You think that there was some oil leaking by right here? Because I do. That's probably one of the major reasons I had a weak lift. So yeah, all the O-rings I've come across in this old tractor need to be replaced. So yeah, this is a par for the course so far with my investigations into this tractor. So we'll get over to the hydraulic pump and I'll show you some of the things I found on it. That's coming up. Hang with me. Okay, here is the hydraulic pump on a tractor that has basically been in service for a while. It is connected to this lube pipe via that bolt. That bolt connects it to this plate here, and that bolt, I believe, right there is where the hydraulic oil is pushed out, I think. Yeah, it's pushed out right there. And underneath, I can't just really see this, but maybe you can. There should be 4 bolts under there for the connection to the pipe that feeds from the filter down that way. So yeah, I think we'll be able to take this pump off and take a look at it. I don't know if that's supposed to be spinny like that. It's very loose. You hear that? Something rattling in there. Let me get close with my lav mic. We'll see. See anything in here I don't like, I'll make a post on the forum. All right, we'll get it off here in a few minutes. There's a bolt on this side at the bottom. You can't see it, but there's a bolt on this side at the bottom. There's a bolt here. And this mounting bracket, or whatever this thing's called, it mounts to one of the bolts that holds pressure relief valve. I think this is what that is. I think this is the pressure relief valve. Anyway, you have to take off one of the bolts for the pressure relief valve there to get this mounting arm free. I just flip it up out of the way there. There's another bolt, another nut here with a lock washer and a washer that hold the pump on as well. And I think this thing is ready to come off. We'll find out. This plate is apparently loose on here, or the bottom part of it is. So we don't want to, I don't want to remove the plate at all. So I'm going to be as careful as I can. I've undone the 4 bolts on the bottom, holding it to the pump, to the pickup. And let's see if this thing comes off. Yes, there we go. You saw that plate move there. All right. That was easier than I thought it would be. Here is a hydraulic pump. Interesting. Very interesting. Outside of it looks very good. It's not dirty or anything at all. I mean, other than my hands messing it up. Interesting. That's really loose. In comparison to what Barry's video showed after he got his back together, I mean, that's zero force to make that turn. There's something in there rattling. Doesn't sound too good. We'll find out. We'll see. So I used a set of pullers, hook them on, get it down on there, tighten it up, came loose. And I hope I didn't mess up my pullers. Nah, I didn't. Yay! I need to grease them. They're brand new. I didn't grease them first. Oh well. Live and learn. But anyway, it popped off. Yay! I got a gear. There's the gear. Now, there is a Woodruff key right here. When you're taking your hydraulic, when you're taking your hydraulic pump apart, be careful. There is a Woodruff key right there. Nice little Woodruff key. Like my blue gloves, 2x2, hands of blue. For those of you that know, you know. Okay, so I'm done this little part of getting the gear and key off. Did not mess up anything, and I am so happy about that. I didn't break the gear. I didn't break any teeth. Oh, you don't know how happy I am. The pressure relief valve, I've got the screws off. As you take these nuts off, be careful. There's a spring underneath. You're just going to have tension the whole time you're bringing it up. Once you take the cap off, mine is not nasty on the inside. It's actually looking very good. Apparently this is an aluminum body. It's not magnetic. There's the spring. There should be some shims in here. This thing just lifts off, I think. Yes, it just lifts off. Where are you? There you are. What's that? All right. Should be some shims here. Oh yeah. Sure I got them all. How many are there here? 1, 2, 3, 4 shims. Set those right there. Any more? Doesn't feel like it. I think that's all of the shims. Yeah. All right, set that there, and look at there, we've got an O-ring. I can't even feel it. Something I noticed while inspecting this thing, I noticed there's a break in this O-ring right there. It's broken completely in two. I am so glad I took this thing apart. O-ring is broken in two right there. I can see shiny metal. If I can move it around. See it? There you go. There's a perfect view for you. Let's see. Right there. O-ring is broken in half. Let's dry rod it. All right, what we have here is called a Plessy hydraulic pump. I've already taken the relief valve off, which you saw previously. I got me a little pointer stick here so I don't mar up the aluminum housing. I think on the newer models of this hydraulic pump, I think this hole is elongated. I think it's the same O-ring that goes in here, but this port doesn't exist on the new ones from what I've seen online. And from Barry's, on Barry's Man from the Mist videos, I don't think he had this piece right here. This looks to be the original hydraulic pump that came out of this tractor, that was supplied with this tractor. One thing to note when you're trying to remove this housing or trying to take the gear off, a lot of times when you're using gear pullers, you'll tap the hammer on top of the gear puller to help facilitate removing of a gear. Don't do that with this. Don't hit this with a hammer at all. At least that's what the book says. I figure that it'll transfer a mark or something onto the back here if you hit it at all with a hammer. I guess this is aluminum, softer material. Don't hit that with a hammer. However, you can lightly tap these two through bolts here. These through bolts are actually captured. I guess they're shoulder bolts in here. These bolts do not come out. I did go ahead and zip off the other bolts. Stuck them in my bag. They're all basically the same length. So to facilitate removal of this, do not under any circumstances use a screwdriver or anything else to try to pry in these two outside plates to try to get this open. Do not use screwdrivers of any. Don't try to push anything in here. These surfaces do not need to be marred. But one way to do this is kind of lift it up off the table and give the screw bolt a little tap. The bottom should fall off. Top will come off, just like so. And we can push that back down on there. So I'm going to mark, where's my Sharpie? The book says to make some marks. So we'll make this top, T for top. We had in our seal kit, we have a replacement gasket, the replacement ring that goes here. I can't tell. It's supposed to be raised, but I can't feel it. There's no raised lip for that seal at all. Now, I will read to you from the good book of service manual for hydraulic systems for these Selectomatic tractors. The good book says, ensure that the bearings are not damaged or embedded with particles of foreign matter. Okay. Examine each bearing for wear in the face and the bores if necessary, lightly polish them. Okay. If the bearing faces are not excessively worn, they may be salvaged by polishing. And it tells you how to polish it. I'll put all this up on the screen somewhere around in here, well, as I'm going through this. Here's the important part. The bearings must not be worn sufficiently to prevent the sealing rings, these, from being compressed when the body bolts are tightened. Temporarily assemble the rotors and bearings, then measure the distance between the outer faces of the bearings. This should be, I'm not going to give you the metric measures. I use thousands. It should be between 3 to 7 thousandths less than the width of the body. I will show you this in the book while I've got it right here. What it's wanting to measure here to make sure that these are not out of spec, there should be, the bearing kind of sits down in the body here, and this, the distance between the bearing, the top of the bearing and the top in the body should be no more than 7 thousandths. Otherwise, you've got worn bearings. And this thing right here is a bearing. This thing inside here. So, let's take a look. $14 thousandths. Looks like my bearings are possibly worn based on what the book says here. There are some recesses right here. These holes right here are supposed to be there. From what the book says, these are relieved areas, I guess, for the pressure to come up. You can see the outline of the seal, the ring around here. And from what I understand in the book, that the area inside that ring is the pressurized area. Which gives me a little pause. If you look, I don't know if I can get the angle right here. Get the angle right. I'm kind of concerned. You see this discoloration right in here? Discoloration here, 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 here. Basically all the way around this, where this ring goes, there's some discoloration. Is that where oil has been coming by? The sealing material? Is that where oil has been spraying by? I wonder. Okay, let's continue to disassemble. I've got that one marked with top. I'm going to mark the bearing as top. It does say, let's see, mark bearings with a felt tipped pin. Okay. Do not use a metal tool for marking. Okay, so we can mark on these with a felt tip pin. Good deal. So I'm just going to push, if I can. Oh, there we go. Yeah. These through bolts. Oh, ooh, this whole thing's coming apart. That is the back plate. I know that because the through bolts, the bolts are shouldered in there. Turn this thing back over. Interesting. I read that one way you could get this thing apart, if it's not as loose as this, or not wanting to come out as easy as mine is here, I read that one way you can do it is flip it over and push right here on these two little eyes, so to speak. Push out, push there, and it should push this top bearing, start to push it out. But anyway, this looks like it's pretty easy to come out. All right, so that's the top bearing. We'll get it up here fairly close so we can take a look. Outside looks okay. Rotate it around in the glare there so any kind of blemishes will stand out. Oh, wow. There's a huge lip on this. Look how scored that is. Wow. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I can definitely feel it. Right there. Anyway, that looks really, really worn to me. And it's out of spec anyway, so it sits down further in the inside of here than it should. All right, so I'll put this off to the side. I'll flip it right on top of this so we know where it came from. I'm making notes here for myself just in case I have to go back and watch this video again. Are these called journals? Are these the journals that they talk about in the book? I guess maybe. I don't see anything necessarily incorrect about it. Oh, this side, the side that is down, has a ring in the bottom of it. I don't know if that's a worn ring, a ring that's worn into it or not, but there's a ring worn, or a ring put in right there. So ring to the bottom on the short gear. Okay. The gears all look really good to me. It came out like that, so right there. Just like that. I'm basically making sure I know where all these parts go. This is where that Woodruff key goes. When you're taking the gear off, there's a Woodruff key that goes in a slot on that gear. Feeling around on this. It's a little bit of a wear spot right in here that I can feel, but just barely perceptible. And finally, removing the bottom bearing. Just pops out. Let's look inside this thing for just a moment. There is a track cut right here. You can see a track here and here, cut, I guess, by the gears. I don't know how high that'll be. It's not bad. But the book does say over there that there would be a track cut in the bottom. You can see it right there. Let me look at the camera. Yep, sure can. Interesting. All right, this bearing. Get back over here centered. Sorry about that. This bearing doesn't look to be nearly as worn as the one that was above it. This one's not nearly as worn. Yes, it's got, grooves, a main groove right here cut in it, but it's not nearly as worn. It doesn't have a lip. Well, it doesn't have a lip like the other one does. I don't know how worn it is. I don't know how thick these things are supposed to be when new, but it's definitely worn. I'm wondering if this pump is even serviceable now. I may have to get a new pump. Based on what I found out in the book, I read it wrong to a degree. Let me reread it for you here. Temporarily assemble rotors and bearings, then measure the distance between the outer faces of the bearings. Okay, I did that. Assemble rotors and bearings and measure the distance between, or distance across. I did so at the center and each end. There's a little variance there, but I don't trust this thing that much. I trust it enough to do this calculation, but it's not a Starrett, that's for sure. Then once you've measured this distance, then you measure this distance. And I did so all the way around, and this is pretty well spot on all the way around. This should be maximum 7 thousandths less than the width of this. Here's my measurements of, get all this stuff out of the way. Here's my measurements across, like so, 0.956, on this side, 0.957, through the center, 0.954, this way. I just used the one that was the biggest for the calculation. And then I measured around here, the widths all the way around was basically 1.970 all the way around. So what I found was 1.970 width of this minus 1.957 width through the center is 13 thousandths. That's too big. We're out of tolerance. 0.007 or 7 thousandths is the max. Worn out. I think I need a new pump. I will post this on the forums and see if anybody's gotten away with this kind of wear on their bearings to put it back into service. Should I go ahead and get a new pump? It is out of tolerance according to the book. I wonder what the experience of people out there in the community is for this kind of thing. Have you seen pumps that are much worse in terms of wear? Is this one like dead completely? I know it's out of tolerance. Don't get me wrong. I know it's out of tolerance. I know for a matter of fact that I need a new pump. I'll be contacting David Brown Parts here in just a little while, I guess, to figure out what the prices are for new pumps, even if to see if they're even available. I feel sure they should be, but I'll check the website. Well, it looks like the reassembly of the PTO housing and putting the pump back on and reassembling of the PTO housing is going to take a lot longer than I thought. If I've got to get a new hydraulic pump, I'm gonna have to order it from David Brown Parts most likely, or Barclay Williams, whoever over there may have one. But it's going to have to come across the pond, and it's going to take a few weeks. It's a setback for me for sure, having that much wear Folks on the forums, is this serviceable as is? I know I do need to get a replacement. Has anybody put a new seal kit in and let it go for a year or two until they can afford a new pump, basically? I should be able to swing a new pump, but depending on the cost. If it's thousands of dollars, no, I'll reseal it and put it back into service. I did read in the book that you don't need to replace just the bearings. There was some reasoning in there that I won't get into, but I'll put it on the screen here if some of that's relevant. You can pause and read it. I don't even need to worry about putting the seal kit on it or anything like that. That's not going to make any difference at all at this point. So, all right, let me do some research on this. I'm going to go search the forums, see if anybody's had any luck with resealing a hydraulic pump that is worn out. This is worn out. And see if I can contact David Brown Parts and see if they've got a hydraulic pump. Thank you for watching. I'll let you guys know how it turns out. If this kind of video is useful to you or helpful to you in any way, if you like this kind of content, like and subscribe down below, right down here somewhere. There's some buttons, like and subscribe. Hit the bell notifications for when I post new ones. If you've got any advice for me, leave it in the comments down below too. I always like reading the comments from folks. It's pretty cool to see you guys doing that. I'll try to reply to as much as I can. But I've got a bad hydraulic pump. So I'll give you guys an update when I get an update on parts availability and that kind of thing. So keep tuning in.